Yes, good day to you, and yes, I am extremely welcome and glad to be here. Eventually, I had some gremlins, but so be it. Uh, the why question has always been part of my life. And if I start off by saying why, I consider that the first three most important questions any coach can ask a coachee, and keep on continuing doing that. And as a grandfather and as a father, the why question ended up being quite a dreaded question, because our children kept us busy by asking that, and eventually, like all full-blooded parents, we would say to them, because I say so. But that is not the answer to life. That's not the answer to life, because the question of why is so important, not just to myself, but to everybody I meet, whether it's coaches or a coachee. And throughout my life, as I said, I started my life out as a teacher. That was a question that so often was asked to me by children, and parents alike later. I am now a whole brain, and the why question is a very important question in understanding your brain, your thinking preference, whether you're left brain or right brain. It's very important, because the why, by definition, by the whole brain practitioners, means a strategist and an innovative thinker. So the why question is actually a very innocent question, but it means so much, because if you can deduct from that strategy and innovation, then you know that is a question that needs a lot of answering. In my past couple of years, I did a lot of interesting things, but one of the most interesting things is that I was invited by a dear friend of mine to be a co-host on his streamed radio station. So I had a slot, work-life balance slot, once a week on a Tuesday morning. And we did that from 2017 throughout to 2022, and that was an absolute highlight of my week. It's that session. We didn't plan anything, or we didn't prepare anything. We were just there talking about, as I say, work-life balances. But often we did get some questions through the network. And the most important question, and the question that asked most of it, was about identity. And if I talk about why, I add immediately identity with it. Because if I don't know my why, I don't know who I am, what I am, why am I born, what should I do, it's all about my identity. Because if I've got clarity, my identity, and identity, we can just say, by definition, it's a set of characteristics, qualities, beliefs, values, and the rules that define me. I'll say again, characteristics, qualities, beliefs, values, and roles that define me. That's my identity. And because I don't understand who I am, because I don't have clarity of those 5 key elements, I've got a problem of who I am. And because I've got a problem of who I am, I ask the why question so often, because I don't know. Like Alice in Wonderland got to the fork in the road, and she didn't know which road to take. And she saw the alley cat up in the tree. She asked the cat, which road should I take? And the cat answered and said, it depends where you want to go. And she said, but I don't know where I want to go. He said, but then any road will take you there. So we need to understand that when I talk why and the answer to the why question, I am actually addressing the concept of identity, of my own identity, which will lead me to where I'm going. That's where the strategy comes in, because the strategy is by definition helping you to define where you're going. And often, how do I get there? We know it from business, the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats about myself, or my business, or of my team, or my, whatever, non-profit organization. I need to strategize for the future. And one of the things, the key that comes out of that is vision. And vision will help me to strategize to an end state and around an end state. And it took me a long time to get a definition of a vision, because I often speak about that to teams, and I struggle to find a definition. I mostly find definitions of visions out of the Bible, for example. So I created my own. It's an imagined reflection of a perceived future. Imagined reflection of a perceived future, mine or that of my business. And the why question is tested against that. If I ask the why question, it needs an end state. It needs a future. I need to be able to help you to answer that question with a future state in mind, who you are. And I think the biggest challenge we got, and that's why we got so many of them on the radio, is struggling with the identity, because we had sources in the identity. Influences from bullying, because both the bully and those that been bullied suffers an identity crisis. We need to help. So what do we do to respond and to get answers to that question as we start looking at others to find out what is good, what is great, what's perfection? And that leads, in my experience, to even greater problems, because we tend to then dream and wish to be somebody else. And we all know that doesn't help that I try to be like somebody else, because I will never be like that person, because that position already taken. You'll only be a second best. And if you think you can create out of yourself perfection by taking bits and pieces of everybody that you see that's perfection, then you're also failing, because the only perfect person has been my God. Your God has been perfection by definition. I, as a human being, cannot be. And the problem that I then find with children, and I've done many leadership camps with kids, then I would look at them when they get to those camps, and they have all these little groups of kids, and they want to sleep together, they want to sit at the same table together, eat and learn from the same table and at the same table. And as I go through this process of helping them with finding their why, because I'm saying, why do I do what I do the way I do it? That's the biggest answer to my why. And if I understand that, I will understand why you do what you do the way you do it. And then both of us is an understanding of our individual roles, which is key and is very important. Then I would see those groups during the course of this program that I run, they start breaking up, because the individuals in there start understanding themselves and start looking at why they joined this group, why they part of this group. Is the, and they start finding their own identity, what they are personally all about. And every time it's excited me that the kids go away, and I'm talking kids, I'm talking students, later year of school, last 2-3 years of schooling. They go away from those camps with an answer to their why question. Because during the course of that, we did some educational learning in the morning and experiential learnings in the afternoon, so they can work through matters that we discussed with them, and they can experience it, and then they get the answers to themselves and give it to themselves and say, why am I question? Why am I part of this? Why am I doing this? And if I take myself in terms of the why question, I was about 55 years old when it dawned on me at that late stage of my life that I was still trying to find my father's acceptance. So I was living a life trying to satisfy my father's why question, not mine. I was living his dreams. And that is probably one of the biggest challenges that I find when I deal with parents and troubled kids. that I find that parents live their futures through their kids. And with all due respect, they create a very bad foundation in those kids, because most of the kids doesn't want to live the parents' lives, but they don't realize that. Until the parents realize that they are really honestly pushing their kids too hard in the wrong direction, and things go wrong, and then they blame everybody else but themselves. They should have asked themselves the why question. Why are they doing this? For the kids' sake? In the interest of the kids? Or social acceptance of the family, of the parents? Or because the parents missed out in certain achievements in their personal lives? And I can draw that through to companies as well. In my 40-odd years in business, the same thing happened to business. And the troubled times we're in now, even since COVID, has forced us to have these hybrid lives. Part of us is in the office, part of us is in the home office, and part of us is in the home itself. We're struggling to work out who we are in different situations and at different times of day. We too struggling with the why question. And I think the why question will always be with us. And we'll always have to live with that why question. And I can conclude by saying that when I talk about all of this, and I talk about me as a brain practitioner, a whole brain practitioner, and finding the answers so often for parents in really who and what their kids is. What is their thinking preference? Are they left brain and the right brain? Because it makes an enormous difference in how they approach even the same simple question as why. And how you as a parent explain that to them. In other words, speak their language. Because if they're left brain, they are facts and figures orientated, very little emotion. And if they are right brain, it's all about emotion. It's all about people. It's all about music, colors, and so forth. So if we as a parent communicate with them, even answer the question, and as an employer, and for that matter, as a coach, it's important that we are able to speak the language of the person that asked the question. Because our answer should resonate with them in their language of the thinking preference.
Right.
So I conclude, and I say thanks very much for the opportunity. This is a subject that covers so much. I conclude with two statements. I think I see a co-presenter, Dr. Dalan, spoke about the lighthouse. In one of the sessions that I had on that steam radio station, I actually did it here where I'm not so far away from where I physically sit now. I did that from a dune next to the ocean. And as I was preparing for this talk, it dawned on me that I'm looking over the expansive ocean and saw even my own life and experiences as being an invisible little boat on this enormous ocean. That if you don't have direction, if you don't have answers to your why question, and if you don't know who you are, then you will be invisible. You will get nowhere. The currents will take you wherever the currents is for that day, in that moment. So we need to get that clarity, otherwise we're invisible. And unfortunately, so many of us, so many of the children and the kids we work with, and even employees, is invisible because they haven't found out the answer to the right question. Okay.
Wow,
so
that's great.
I'm sitting there, I'm looking at that invisible, and I looked over my right hand shoulder and I saw the lighthouse. And I said, that's the definition of invincibility. That's where I want to go, because the storms, doesn't matter what. The lighthouse has been there. This one here in Cape Agulhas, southernmost tip of Africa, has been there for 177 years. And they're still in the same place doing exactly the same thing, guiding us and teaching us the definition of invincibility. Because if my ship want to be invincible, I must look at even the invincible ideas. I conclude by saying, I start off with the definition of identity. I want to share with you the definition of authentic identity. Is the genuine and true sense of self, free from external expectations and societal pressures. Free from external expectations and societal pressures. Unfortunately, influences us every day, and we need to have clarity to go on. Thanks once again.